Today we're going to prove why any age or any young people or anyone can vote as long as they have the measure of knowledge about politics. In our world, we believe in this. Since that what actually matters is what you know in real life and what's in your head, it's the most important thing. And the age is just a variable that matters very little about voting things. So today we're going to prove why this policy stands since everybody can vote as long as they have internal knowledge. So people that actually know these things these political stuff should actually vote because it's just more logical to think like this. And I'm gonna move on to my first argument. So basically, my first argument is about how not all stupid stupid people are not credible to vote for these policies and these presidential stuffs. There's multiple reasons why. So first of all, I'm just gonna give an example. The USA. The USA has a pretty low average IQ, which is 98, and this caused the country to vote for Trump because multiple reasons. Because of the people, a lot of people in the US are very stupid and lack knowledge. They just vote whatever they think sounds better, which is not true. And actually, we actually need to have a standard based testing to actually test does people actually know politics and stuff to actually let them vote. There's three reasons why. The first reason, a lot of people act like they know and they're just LARPing and they're acting like they're very smart, but they're not. You actually need to test people to do it. And it doesn't matter with the age, any age can vote since that as long as they know the information they can vote. There's nothing wrong with it. It's logical. And my final reason why, yeah, sure.
How will you implement to make everyone take the literacy test?
I think that question's kind of dumb. Do you know a country could just set it up? All they need to do is before you take the test, before you vote, you need to take this test. Yeah, online. I don't know why is it so complicated for the other team to understand this. And so the impact of this, no, 15 seconds haven't passed. So the impact of this, the country wouldn't vote bad president, and this will be more reasonable for the country to become better. So I'm gonna move on to my last argument. It's about how people acting stop people from voting, and if that happens, dumb people try to vote and take a standard based testing, they'll actually better because if you stop them from voting, they can actually it will encourage them from trying to learn more about politics. No, later. Politics. So in this case, if they try to learn about politics, more people could actually vote, and this is actually better for the country. And banning people from not knowing anything them voting, there's another reason why this is good. First of all, I already explained it. Is it how people in the US just have very dumb voting choices? Because everybody knows Trump is a very bad president. Is that I'm gonna stop the Russian and Ukraine war in one day. He's just very stupid. So that just proves why they need to implement this policy. And also, I'm gonna one more reason. We will flush out the people that don't want to learn, that don't want to actually understand politics, and I'm proud to propose.
Good afternoon, everyone. For almost 100 years, one country ran the exact test the proposition wants tonight. After slavery ended in America, black citizens won the right to vote. The states that wanted to stop them did not ban them outright. They brought a literacy test to vote. You had to prove you understood how government worked. It sounded fair, but the questions were made impossible. The marking was rigged, and black citizens failed while white citizens passed. It was so unfair and so cruel that in 1960, America banned these tests for voting completely. The world decided this tool was too dangerous to ever use again. Tonight, the propositions wants to bring it back. That is why we are proud to oppose this House would abolish the minimum age requirement to vote, replacing it with a basic political literacy test. Let me make the motion clear. It does two things. It removes the voting age. It forces everyone who wants to vote at any age to first pass a test on how their government works. Notice who has to take that test. Not just kids. Every single adult who can vote today would now have to sit an exam to keep their vote. Hold on to that because the proposition will try to make you forget it. Here's what we defend and why. Voting is a right, not a reward. That difference is the whole debate. So let me prove it. A reward is something you earn and you can lose. A right is something you have simply because you are a citizen who lives under the government and follow its laws. Voting has to be a right because the people a government can tax, arrest, send to war are the exact people who deserve to stay
You know
over
what?
it. Well, yes.
So are you saying like people that don't know anything that just LARPing should vote to like that? That's what you're completely trying to prove right now. That's not.
Do I still have to answer that? Voting has to be a right because the people a government can tax, arrest, and send to war are the exact people who deserve a stay over it. Whether or not they can pass a quiz about it, the moment you have to earn your vote, the government gets to decide who is good enough to be heard. That is the most dangerous power you can ever hand it. My first argument, a voting test is the most dangerous tool for silencing people ever invented, and we know that because it already happened. Think about what a test needs. Someone writes the question, someone sets the pass mark, someone marks the answers. Every one of these is a lever, and whoever is in power controls all three. A government that wants to silence the people who oppose it does not need to ban them. It just writes a test those people fail. It makes the questions harder in poor areas. It marks one group strictly and another group easily. This is not made up. It is exactly what has happened in American South, where this same tool took the vote away from millions of people for generations. Yes.
The literacy test was a tool to use to block voting. You are imposing one of the abuse system as your only cherry-picked example. If we want to go with historical example, the voting age test in the past gave us the Nazi Germany, then isn't that basically you guys are basically spamming what the voting system and giving people what they think that people that are incapable rights to vote?
No, as I said, if you weren't listening, this voting test took place in 1960 something, about 1960 to 1965, the ban of it. The only reason there was a ban was because most black people didn't know how the government worked, and the government was also making the test unfairly. Let me continue. Handing it to every government that comes after, including the bad one, an age rule can never be rigged because there's nothing to rig. You cannot fail being 18. My second argument is the age rule treats everyone equally. Why has almost every country on earth, as the info side admit, chosen an age? Because age is fair to everyone. So here's the choice. Voting is a right, not a prize. Their test silences the poor, and age treats everyone equally. They are reopening the one-door democracy fought 100 years to slam shut. This is why we proudly oppose. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. Today I'm going to be providing a rebuttal and an argument to show why we took this debate home. So the opposition team has only been cherry-picking one extreme example of how the voting test has created a lot of issues in the past. However, this isn't true because in our world, and we will make sure that what happened in the past, which is just one extreme cherry-picked example, is going to be different from the actual time that from the past, and we're going to make sure that all these things are going to be right. So the opposition team states that in this one cherry-picked example, when America was new, he said that they would abuse this voting test to make it so that minorities or other people who might not have an understanding of these political examples would not be able to vote because they're always failing. Yes, this is true in the past, but we're going to make sure, as I'm going to state in my arguments, that this is going to not be the case in our world. So what we're going to out of order. So what we're going to do in this world, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the test will be clean and actually have a more objective way of checking the things. And we're also going to make sure that we're going to have free retakes in order to make sure that we can learn these. They've also stated that adults will be barred from actually doing these things because the tests are going to not let them actually do the actually vote properly. However, what we're doing is that we're making sure that even adults who might be at the age but not have a proper understanding of political literacy will actually understand and do the right thing for the country and the decisions themselves. Yes?
So you're making millions of adults who already vote sit an exam to keep their rights. So who exactly are you trying to remove from the voting list?
We're trying to remove anyone who doesn't actually have a political, who aren't actually political literate in this case right now. Because like even if an American was 18, they understood everything. They voted for years and years. They might still not have a proper political understanding. So we're making sure that even adults who are at the age to vote and can actually do what they need to do can actually have a political understanding and make sure that even children who may have just as much political understanding as adults will be able to vote as well. For example, if a 16-year-old with a perfect understanding of political infrastructure will be able to help countless people in society, but why should we make it so that why should we make it so that they can't even make a single vote in society? So now this will be a perfect this is similar to my argument where we'll make sure that this clean and objectively checked test will make sure that we can make that we can weed out the people who have a bad political understanding. Like for example, there's driving tests in the world, so why can't we do political literacy?
POI.
No, thank you. No, if we ban these, we're not with this test. The opposition has stated that they can from this POI that it can bar adults from this test. But we're making sure that even adults who might not have political understanding to actually make sure that they can how to vote and actually make decisions.
POI.
Out of order. These tests are learnable. We're making sure that by doing this, we are also going to make sure that adults and children alike are going to be the ones who are going to make the proper decisions instead of just having a few adults who might not even have political understanding that even some students have more than would be able to vote and make bad decisions. So by doing this, we're not shrinking the voter circle. We're just expanding it to the more politically versed and this will be more helpful to society. So we're not. So from these reasons, we have proven that using a political voting test will not be an issue like that one cherry-picked example that opposition has stated before, and that by doing this, we're going to make sure that our world will have more politically versed voters that will actually have minds that make up our society and have better understanding of politics. So for these reasons, propose.
Firstly, I would like to start off with my rebuttals. The other team said that if these people can't vote, then they're gonna get motivated to learn politics. But we believe that these people, they'll most likely feel discouraged that they're not a part of this voting system and they don't have their voting rights. And they're not gonna feel motivated. And if people aren't politically educated, then it's more about education itself and not removing voting rights. It's not gonna work. Also, they said that they want to remove lower political literacy intelligence people. But the thing is, this doesn't really justify a literacy test because the laws, they affect people a lot. People are still affected by laws these days, regardless of how smart they are. So removing their vote doesn't really remove the impact on them instead. Also, intelligence doesn't really guarantee good decisions. Educated voters can also do bad stuff. So instead of excluding people, we should improve education and not take away voting rights. Also, they compare driving tests with literacy tests. But the thing is, this comparison doesn't work because driving is a skill-based activity where like voting is a right. A driving test exists to like prevent car crashes and prevent harm, but on the roads where like one mistake can cause huge accidents, but voting doesn't really work that way. Like, no, not a single vote can cause either a direct harm like a car crash. Next, onto my argument. My argument title is that literacy test gives governments too much power on voting. The other team says the other team says only politically literate people should vote. Why? Because they think that these informed people can somehow make better decisions. But the thing is, why should a test prove that? A test only shows that someone can memorize facts and stuff, and not really how you understand something. No, like you know how in school you know how we get exams every year? It's just like that. People take these tests and then they forget, they memorize everything before, but then after that, they forget everything because they really don't care about it anymore. Same goes for these people when they're doing the political tests. On the other team, they want to use these tests, but studies shown that more than 50% of people forget stuff after their tests, so why should passing a test decide political power? Also, there's also illiterate and disabled people who maybe can't read and can't take the test, and even if they know a lot about politics enough to vote, they still can't vote for some reason on the other side because apparently they aren't politically literate as they failed the test. Also, democracy isn't really built on the principle that every citizen has the same knowledge. It's built on that every citizen has an equal voice to vote. Nowadays, many adults vote knowing the full, not knowing the full law. Not knowing the full law, yes, we still don't take their voting rights away because voting is meant to reflect what the person thinks, what the person's interests are, and not how smart they are. That's the point of democracy. But if political knowledge becomes our requirement for voting, then it's not going to be the person's rights anymore, and it's going to turn into something that's controlled, and this is going to change democracy where it's not fair and equal for everybody. Why is this important? This is important because this can lead to where the governments gain all the power to indirectly choose who gets a political voting right. Even a small amount of bias can exclude millions of people, especially those who are illiterate and or disabled, and which overall defeats the whole purpose of democracy. That is why I'm very proud to oppose this motion. Thank you.
The right to vote should belong to those who can understand the choice, and age is crude. Arbitrary proxy for that capacity. The government solution is simple, that the people who understand the choice vote. Age 18 is just legal convenience, not a moral threshold. There are multiple cases that prove sometimes under 18 children can make more responsible choices than a 40-year-old lady. On the opposition side, the case that is likely to happen is people that are mostly don't know about anything, just following the trend and what other people said to vote. They know nothing about the government, which leads to irresponsible leaders to get up and take over the country, and eventually my country increasing the threat of the country to collapse. In this debate, government side successfully delivered a solution that solves the issue in the status quo, which is weed out the people that are irresponsible, which means knowing nothing about the country. One interesting clash I found throughout this debate is right or earned privilege. First, one reason why we want this clash. First, a meaningful right purpose is a capacity. Presuposes is a capacity to exercise it. So a basic threshold honors rather than betrays it. And add on to it, the test isn't removing the right. We are making sure that educated people will have the rights to vote, and this test will infinitely retakeable, which should allow this right. And throughout this debate, our case, we successfully delivered the benefits that we establishing this solution will give to the country. And for example, we are giving people that are educated, more responsible, that knows the basic knowledge about the government to vote, which basically increases the chance of leaders that are responsible and capable to lead the country and brings to let me restate that again, my bad, and brings to bring us the country into improvement. Throughout this debate, our best case is the rights to vote should belong to those who can understand the choices, and the age is crude and arbitrary and a proxy for that capacity. Our best case give you the best leader possible and people that actually have reasonable reason to vote for someone that is best. This is what vote for people that are capable for their job. This impact behind this is to fix the foolish vote in the country and create a more benefit for the country and the citizen. Josh, if you want a responsible leader that can lead your country to improvement, then you gotta give the win to us. Yes, POI.
Okay, so your team has been saying about literary tests. You only have said that you will have a test. Will it be on paper, online, or what?
I mean, the test can be anything. This doesn't have any correlation to actually proving that our solution is better. Instead, you're just giving us more solutions that we can make the test more easier or simple for different kind of people. Maybe people want online tests, maybe people want offline tests. It can all be like that. So basically, this POI is giving us a better, more simpler way for the citizen. And throughout this debate, opposition's best case is voting rights to everyone and not a reward. But the problem is, in the status quo, we can see your argument does not stand, because in the status quo, the problem is that the foolish people are taking the votes over, and that's what we don't want. We're on the government side. We're trying to solve this. Throughout this debate, opposition failed to prove why our solution doesn't create benefit, and also failed to deliver impact of how this is going to benefit the country. And they are third reason, they are also not, they are pointing at our policy, they're pointing at a different tools that happens to share a name. Tell me what is a structurally exclusionary about free public learnable civics test, or drop the comparison. Tell me, but you can't. In conclusion, the question before you is not whether everyone should have a voice, but what is the vote for? We say it exists to choose capable leaders, and our world is the only one that ties the ballot to the purpose. A published, free, retakeable test that excludes nowhere really learner, while finally infuriating the informed minor, the status quo silenced by the birthday alone. Opposition's rules leave an arbitrary age line untouched. Every problem we identify unsolved. They ask you to define the gate they admit they cannot justify. We ask you only that are a voter understand the choice they are making. On the class that decides this round, age versus competence, prefer the measure that tracks what democracy actually needs. That's why proposition stands this debate and won this debate. Thank you.
That government their third speaker has answered our POI and said that it doesn't matter anyways on how the test is taken. So I would like to state the flaws in how their test will be taken. If it's online, hackers could be ones cheating or changing or going into the system. If it's on paper, how are we going to manage it? We would need a lot of money, and how are you going to gather all the people in the country in one place to take the test? Okay, then they told us about how if they had a literary test, they would people who fail would be motivated to get more education and to vote and to learn. Yeah. Oh, not yet. And then, but how will they be motivated to learn when it can discourage them because they feel like they're incompetent and they can't vote? And their test also faces many problems. Like, for example, people with dyslexia, they have a learning disorder. How are they supposed to learn? They're illiterate. They cannot pass the test to vote. And there is a UN universal law of human rights where people they declare that it grants people of this minimal age requirement on this country that they have to have a right to vote, this like without discriminating their race, gender, education, or status, which means that their whole debate was wrong. They're also talked about political tests, but they're talking about the wrong motion, because the motion clearly states that we are replacing it with basic political literacy tests. We have also stated that yes.
Our test is exactly like a citizenship test. Are you against citizenship tests?
What? Okay. From what I hear, so he's talking like about citizenship pass. So their test is about their test is going to be testing literacy and blah 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 for people to actually vote. And citizenship test is another thing. It's not the same thing. They've already done this test. They're the citizens. They should be able to vote. Plus, people these days, okay, you go to a store, you pay tax, you get income, you have to pay income tax. People who pay tax, shouldn't they be allowed to vote? Because they should be able to decide who their money is going to, who passes the laws that are going to affect them. Why should they be the ones not being able to vote, but then pay the government that they didn't vote themselves? Then we also talked about how the test could be biased. Like history shows that sometimes governments are biased for the wealthy people. Sometimes, like my first speaker said, they gave white people maybe easier tests and black people more harder tests. Now, okay, maybe that may not be in the real world now, but what about this? Poor people get the harder test because they don't want the poor people to vote for them. Instead, they want the influence of the wealthy people. They want governments these days are corrupt. And they also talked about how they should have a test because they want to know if people are smart enough to get up with politics. But if people are dumb, the government's job is to teach them. It's a priority, a responsibility of the government. But if these people are not being allowed to vote, shouldn't they be allowed to vote? The government, who can actually be responsible to teach them, to provide healthcare, to provide their basic needs, for them to actually be smart enough.
The proposition asks you tonight to throw out a voting system that actually works and swap it for one that they never actually built. By the end of this whole debate, they still hadn't told you who writes the test, where you sit, how it's marked, or what stops a leader from rigging it. You don't scrap a basic right in you don't scrap a grand basic right with so many holes. So let me walk you through them. First clash. Their model barely exists. Their entire plan was give people a test before they vote. That was it. Online or in person. Who writes the questions? Who marks them? What's the pass mark? On a motion about people's right in a final. Those aren't small details. That's the whole debate. They ask you to sign a blank check and trust them to fill in the rest later. We're not betting democracy on that. Second clash, and this one's very fatal. They admitted the danger and they never fixed it. They said they'd make sure leaders can't cheat or rig the test. Great. How? They didn't name one rule, not one safeguard. They saw the exact weakness we warned about, agreed it was real, then just promised it'd be fine. A promise isn't a safeguard if their own side can't name a single way to stop a corrupt government rigging this test. That's because there isn't one. Third clash. And their best argument turns on them on this one because they said blocking people from voting would push them to go learn politics. Think about that. Tell someone they're not good enough to have a say and they don't feel inspired. They feel shut out. Nobody falls in love with a system that just lock the door on them. So here's the choice, and weigh the two worlds, okay? Take their plan at their absolute best. A perfectly fair test. No cheating ever. What do you still get? Millions of poor adults shut out because they couldn't afford the schooling or a tutor to pass. Their dream still silences people. Now, take our worst case. Maybe a few voters aren't perfectly informed. So what? Every citizen still keeps their voice and nobody can ever be locked out. Our worst day protects everyone and their best day still leaves people behind. That's why I vote opposition. Thank you.
Today, I'm gonna prove why their whole argument, whole speech, every one of them's argument is completely irrational and unreasonable. I'm gonna give 3 reasons why. So first of all, according to them, we have citizenship tests and these things is bad and unfair, and they're also saying it's cheating and stuff. That's completely stupid. Are you saying the government will actually fake it to their own citizens? No, they're not racist or anything. They're all the same race in that country almost generally. So nobody's gonna try doing that. It's like saying all white people they will flip or something. Also, we told you that we will run a test a citizenship test, but the other side just keeps ignoring our POIs, and so that's pure ignorance. So my second reason is that the other team, my other reason is that the other team is saying it's gonna get cheated on or something hackers that's not true. If it's on paper, how does the hacker even access the paper until they talking very stupid things? My final reason is that we have centuries of citizenship tests and we use that as our model, but opposition keeps gaslighting that we did not say this false. And so in conclusion, all their arguments is weird and their whip doesn't provide any logical reason. And she's just talking nonsense. So we won this debate. Done.